Hi, my name is Joseph Hammond. I'm a professional illustrator, and in this video I'm going to be drawing a young woman emphasizing form. Okay. I just want to remind you, if you like this video, if you learned something from it, I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and the like button. That would help me out a lot. Okay. So what am I doing here? I'm drawing a preliminary drawing. This is the drawing that actually will be going, all the scaffolding, basically, if you're doing a building, of my final piece. I draw it on a separate piece of paper, and then when it's done, I will transfer it over to my final paper. Okay? Now, how did I figure out the proportions? This one's a little bit different than the other drawings that I've done, where your eye level is pretty much the same as the reference material's eye level, and here it is not. My eye level is way down here, past her cowl on her sweater. I mean, it's really low, so I'm looking up at her. And what problems does that cause is that it foreshortens the top of the head. Okay, the top half of the head is, because see how where her hairline is to the top of the head, and I've got it too long here, but it's much shorter than it would normally be. So I used calipers. It's like a divider, okay, and that makes it pretty easy to get the measurements off of my reference material here, and I could just bring it right over onto this. That's why I left this reference material over here for you to see. So you can see that what I did was I took the measurements with my calipers like this from the top of the head to her chin, and then I measured from the top of her head to her eyebrows and drew in that, and top of her head to her bottom of her nose, top of the head to, from the bottom of the nose to her mouth, and I'm able to get those measurements with those calipers. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. It gives me a ballpark, it could be a quarter inch off, something like that. It's not going to be drastically off, like maybe, over an inch off or something like that. But I considered at that point I'm going to be whittling it down, okay, like I'm carving wood, right? Get closer and closer to where I want to go. But in this case here, if you go too far, you can just redraw it. Wood, you can't do that. But so now you see why I don't draw this directly onto my finished paper. I'm doing a lot of erasing and redrawing. That makes it so I have a lot of pencil marks and eraser marks, and I don't want to damage that paper because that's going to be where the final image is going to be, and you don't want it to look like you made a lot of mistakes. Not mistakes, but I mean you made a lot of corrections. So anyhow, that's why I draw it on here. As you can see, like that, even that outside edge of the face was off by what, maybe a quarter inch near the bottom there. And then I still have to make all kinds of corrections. See how this is corrected here? Now, form. Let me give you an explanation of what form is. Form is creating the illusion of a three-dimensional object on a flat surface. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to make this drawing look three-dimensional even though it's on a piece of paper. Okay, and can I do that with line? Yes, you can. As a matter of fact, you must do it with line because that's the beginning of the the process of making it into a three-dimensional object. See, around the chin there, I go around the chin and up. Okay, and then I go the jawline and up. That tells me my chin is in front of my jawline. My jawline is in front of the cheek, and my cheek is in front of the cheekbone. That's how you draw things that tells the brain that this is in front of that object. Okay, that's how you create the differences here. Okay, and so what am I doing here is I'm going to start creating little facets. Okay, can you see like I've broken it up into smaller shapes? Those are plane changes. Okay, I know that the eye is like sunken in, and then it starts to come out where the cheekbone is, and then it goes down where the cheek ends there. And I draw these little planes of which you will not see in the finished drawing. But that tells me that, how this form is going. And also I can draw my light shapes and dark shapes around those plane changes. Okay, because I know that if a plane is facing upwards, it's going to be light, and it gradually starts to go away from the light. As it goes away from the light, it gets a little bit darker. Now I've blocked in my darks and lights here. That's what that's called, blocking in your lights and darks. Okay, why did I do that? Because I can look at that shape and tell you if my drawing is correct. Okay, in this case here, it's telling me that the head is not wide enough. At first, I thought it was going to be too elongated, but I realized that it was a little bit elongated. But my basic problem was that the head was not wide enough. Her head is more like a round ball, versus I had her head shaped more like an egg. And so those are the corrections I can make. Also, now the most important tool I use to make corrections on my drawing is I use a handheld mirror. Okay, that will reverse the image, and when the image is reversed, it creates it gives you the ability to see errors. And if you learn anything from this video, learn that. I mean, that'll make the whole video worthwhile. Okay, that's probably one of the most important tools that I've used, is that handheld mirror. Also, get up out of your chair about every 10-15 minutes and get away from your drawing and stand about 10 feet back and look at it. And you'll be able to see the drawing as a whole, rather than seeing the drawing as maybe around the eyes or something like that. And that also will help you in determining problems with the drawing. Okay, so we've got that. Now we're going to be emphasizing mostly form through values. Okay, so now what is a value, right? A value is your darks and your black and your white. Okay, and in between your darks, your black and your white, if you mix black and white together, you get a middle gray. Okay, and on the right hand side of that middle gray, everything is going to be lighter, and all the way up to white. Everything on the left hand side of that middle gray is going to get darker and go to black. Okay, that's what your values are. Now, if you wanted to see, you can Google the words value scale or artist grayscale, and that will actually give you an image of what that is. Okay, now I took that last image that was a finished drawing. I figured it was close enough, and I transferred it over onto this paper, which is I used a carbon paper to do it, and it came out a little bit light. I would have preferred it to be a little bit darker because I had a hard time seeing it. And as a matter of fact, that's why I keep on getting my head in the way here, is because I'm trying to get closer to see, where the line drawing was. So after you do that, you're trying to get, I'll tell you what the technique is here, okay? I establish my darks and my lights first. Okay, like the highlight there, and I put in a light there, and then I go over the whole thing with a white pencil. Okay, it's a pastel pencil. It's a Carbo Othello white. Okay, that's what that is right there. And that is a Derwent pastel pencil, sepia. Now, the Derwent sepia has two different kinds. It has a warm and it has a cool. Okay, in this case here, I was using a cool. The cool is more of a gray tone. Okay, the warm is more of a kind of a reddish brown, and I felt that for this case here, I thought it it looked better with the gray, and I like it better, especially if I'm going to go over the top of this with color. It keeps my cool areas cool, and I don't have to try to cool it down as much because when you're adding color, and then you're worrying about temperature. Here we're going to just be drawing a monochromatic drawing, so we're not worried about the temperature. We're only worried about the form. Okay. Now, we to be able to draw a drawing, like this, you have to be able to gradate. Okay. Gradation is where you're going from your, black, and then you gradate it in an even, seamless manner all the way to white. Okay. And it's not easy to do, to be able to get it to be seamless and go from all the way from black to white there. I remember my first year in school, they had us draw a long box. Okay. And in that long box, we start out with black, and then you add a little white and add a little white. Or if you're doing it with pencil, you can start out with a black with a lot of carbon, from the pencil there, and then you get lighter and lighter as you put on less and less lead. So that's how that's why the gradation. It has to be a perfect gradation from one end to the other, and you could use certain areas where you may have a little bit of hard edge. You can use it a smudge, a pencil. A paintbrush, or you can use your finger to soften it up, so it gradates seamlessly. Now, remember, in art there is no cheating. I remember used to hearing that back in high school or something. You can't do that. That's cheating. Well, in art there are no rules and there are no cheating. In some ways that's good, in some ways that's bad, because well, it's not bad, but it makes it more difficult, because it would be so much simpler if you thought about it. If you had rules saying, okay, this is the way you do it, and that's it. You don't have any deviations of how to do it. You just do it this way, and that's it. But that would be awfully boring too. And so you are the artist. You make decisions on how you want to do things. If you want to use your finger to smudge something, or if you want to use a paintbrush to smudge something, even if you want to, if you're doing this as a hobby, you could use, you don't have to actually learn to draw. It could take like 5 years to learn to draw, or 4 years, of going to art school and drawing every day. And, that's how you learn to really draw. But, if you don't have 4 or 5 years of going to art school time, and you just want to do this as a hobby, you still can do it. Just transfer the image over and then have fun, laying in the values and, understanding. But, it's actually better to learn how to draw. But, like I said, if you're doing this just for fun, you can just transfer it over. Okay. Now, like I was saying earlier, see if all this is gradation. Okay, so it's gradation over gradation over gradation. So to do a drawing, a value drawing like this, you definitely have to be able to gradate. Okay, otherwise it's just not going to come out right. You'll come out with some weird hard edges, and the values won't be correct. The darks and the lights won't be correct. So that, and it should not take that long to learn to gradate. You may have to do it, 4 or 5 times, and it is extremely boring. Let me tell you, I remember doing it over and over back in school. But it's boring, but I think it's very essential. You have to be able to gradate to be able to draw like this. Okay? So, like I was telling you earlier, the process is to draw the darks in and your lights in. To get gray, see, we're only working with one pencil here, right? One sepia pencil. How do we get the gray? I mean, I can understand how we get the darkest dark with it. You just put in a lot of pigment on that area and you're going to get your darkest dark. Now, how do you get gray though? I mean, it's not like a pencil where you're just going to go in lighter, but it is sort of like that. I mean, you go in a little bit lighter, and then when you go over the whole thing with the white, that'll come out not white, but it'll come out as a gray. Okay, and when you do this over again, you can determine how gray, how light or how dark you want that gray to be, because we don't have a gray pencil here, so you're sort of like mixing your colors, which I do when I'm using color. Okay, you're mixing your color on the surface itself. You're not only using like if you're oil painting, it would be called straight out of the tube colors, right? You're mixing those colors together on the surface of the drawing. But in this case here, you're mixing the white and your darks together, creating grays. Okay? It probably is a little bit more difficult, but actually is probably a good way to learn how to mix your colors. As like I was saying, some people probably think that you're just using one color and then another color. No, you're mixing those colors on the surface. Okay, so that's what I was doing here. Now, I look at this and I say, okay, my midtones, which are middle values, you got your darks and then you got your middle values and then you got your lights and you got your highlights, right? My middle values are too dark, okay? And I need to go over that area with white. Again, especially like on the forehead there, it goes way too from the darks to the light too abruptly, okay? And what I need to do is I need to go over that area with a white. So, I've worked shape to shape. I think it makes it easier for the viewer to understand, especially when I'm drawing form. Form is easier, I think, when you're going from shape to shape. The shape to shape, let's say, is on the eye, where I have the fold of the eye there, where it goes into the eyelid. That to all the way up to the eyebrow would be considered like one shape. Okay. What makes it easier to think of that as creating that form is I can go from the darkest dark I got to the middle value to a little bit lighter to lighter and then highlight. I can do that in a shape versus working the whole thing at once, but I will end up working the whole thing near the end of the drawing. You'll see where you have to go back and then you got to start adjusting your values. You have to adjust your gradations, and you also have to start looking for hard edges, and because remember, your edges, okay, are about 90% of your edges are going to be soft, 10% of them are going to be hard. Okay, hard edge is like on the side of the nose, on the side of the face there. The outside contour of the face is going to be a hard edge. Around the eyes, those are your hard edges. All the rest of those edges that remember I showed you by when I was making faceting it, those are your edges also, but they're going to be soft edges. You're not going to see a line there. You're going to see a gradual turning of the form. Okay, turning of the form. It's like a little hill. Like you've heard me talk about the little ant that crawls across the face, right? It's the same thing here. The little ant is crawling on the side of her forehead there, goes up that little hill, then there's a little bit of a stop there, and then starts climbing up the hill. And as the ant gets closer to the light source, it gets lighter and lighter. The surface gets lighter and lighter. but you have to think of that little guy climbing over the top of that object. Okay, now we were talking about form. Let me give you an example of form, and it would be a cue ball. Okay, that's probably the best, easiest way to explain it. You have a cue ball sitting on top of a table. Okay, that cue ball is going to be lighter at the very bottom edge. I mean, obviously, it's got a shadow shape on the right, just like this one here, and the bottom. But it's going to be a little bit lighter along the bottom because you're getting ambient light, reflected light, hitting off the tabletop and hitting the bottom of the ball. Okay? You would think that that's going to be your darkest area, right? But it's not. You're going to have a little bit lighter area, and it's going to go into start to get a little bit darker, and then it's going to get the darkest, and that is your core shadow. Okay, that's the area where your reflected light is not hitting, or is hitting the least. Okay, and you can see a core shadow along the side of the right hand side of her nose there in the shadow shape that I'm doing right now. That is the core shadow. You see where there's a darker line there? And in this case here, the core shadow is going to vary, thicker, thinner, and it makes it more interesting rather than a solid line that just goes across like on a cue ball. Right? In the cue ball, you go to the light, like on her head there, and then you go to the highlight. Draw that cue ball a couple times. And when you get the cue ball to look like a round sphere, and you can grab in there and grab that cue ball. That means that you're able to gradate and you're able to draw form. Okay. Now, because that cue ball's form is going to be a lot easier than the form on her face, because of the fact that she doesn't have a perfectly round face, right? She's got you got little valleys and you got little creases, and that complicates the issue a little bit. So, try it on a cue ball first, and when you get that correct, you can go to a real face. Unfortunately, art is like anything else in life. There is no easy answers, okay? I've never found, and I've looked, let me tell you, I've looked, for the magic formula, right? And in oil painting, you're always looking for that, the magic medium, that oil that is going to make it so everything flows perfectly and, looks great, But you find out that it's not so much the medium that you use, it's not so much the brushes you use, it's your understanding and the knowledge that you've gained. And that's what makes this fun, right? It's the knowledge that you gain from this. That's what's fun about it. If I learn every day, right? If I stopped learning, this would be extremely boring. If I sat there and thought, okay, I've learned everything I need to learn, I'm not going to learn anymore. Well, what's the purpose of what's the purpose of doing this? The purpose of doing this is because you're learning something, and that's what makes it fun. Okay. So anyhow, what I'm saying is that there is no quick answer to it. There is no magic. The only magic is keep on doing it over and over, and hopefully each drawing that you do or each painting that you do is better than the last one, and I guarantee it will be. No matter what stage of drawing or painting you're in, if you do it, maybe even just 3 hours a day, you'll see a significant amount of improvement. And what you do is you take the information that I'm giving you or some other artist is giving you, and you apply it and see if it works for you. And just because it worked for that person or for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But if you try this and you tried that, different papers, different pencils, it might get a little expensive, but that's what makes it, you know, you can figure out what you want your piece to look like. Uh, I think that's, important to a lot of people. Is to me, it's just what I like. That's the easiest way of seeing what, your style of drawing or painting is going to be. It's what you like, what you feel, uh, you know, uh, you have a hunger for it. You know, like abstraction, for instance. It doesn't really interest me that much. And I've seen some good abstraction. I think good abstraction is interesting, but most of it is not that interesting to me. But academic type drawings is what I really enjoy looking at and doing, or even painting. To me, that's a lot of fun. So anyhow, now that I've given you all that, what I'm doing here is gradating. I'm using that Conte sketch pencil that I told you, and the reason why I use that is it doesn't lay down a lot of pigment. If I use my regular white, it would probably start getting too white, then I'd have to go back in with the darks again. And so I use that, and I can get a nice gradation with it. Okay, so this is a finished drawing, okay? I think it does what I really wanted it to do. I think the form, you see the form that I was hoping to get. I think it does that. And I drew in the collar, the sweater that she's wearing there. And I wanted to show you that there's a lot of detail within that sweater, and I drew a lot of the detail in there. But I don't want your attention to go to that sweater, even if it has detail in it, because I want your attention to go to the face up there. And so I keep the values neutral. Okay, the darks and the lights are pretty much, closer together than on the face, and all my attention goes towards that. Okay, and also the sweater, I designed it. Okay, it's an unfinished design. It's sort of a vignette. A vignette is something that really, well, it only touches the edges on two spots there. The rest of it's like free floating in space. So also, I wanted to talk about the dark shape. Okay, the dark shape, is a big mass there, right? And you want to make that shape as beautiful as you can. And I had an instructor, and she always talked about the river of darkness, right? And that stuck in my head to tell me that all these shapes of the darkness are connected together. Okay, if you look at the drawing here, you'll see that all my darks are connected. There are no free-floating dark areas. You don't have little spots of darkness all over the place. All of it is connected together and flows into the main dark area. Okay, even that on the neck there, it flows into that area there. And remember, thicker and thinner. It makes the shapes much more interesting. Okay, now again, I wanted to remind you that if you like this video, hit the like button, and if you learn something from it, also hit the subscribe button. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to talk about the soft. Okay, see how pudgy and soft that is? How do you get that to look like that? Well, you keep your highlights neutral around the softer fleshy areas. And then you keep like above the eyebrow. I wanted it to look like there was a bone under there, right? So what I did was you keep the highlights a little more intense. And that tells you, the viewer, that there is a hard object underneath there. Okay? And so that's how you get the feel of softness and hardness. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching this far into the video. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.